Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be for those of you who are complete beginners to the world of modern calligraphy. So I'm talking like if you've literally never even picked up a brush pen, then keep watching because today's video will be just the thing for you. I'm going to be going over a few of my favourite tools from when I was a beginner and also a few helpful hints that I wish I knew when I started modern calligraphy. So let's get right to it. So the first and arguably most important thing you're going to want to buy before you get into brush lettering is of course a brush pen. There are loads and loads of different options on the market, so it can be quite overwhelming to a complete beginner. I remember feeling that way myself when I started, so I thought I'd take you through some of the options that are most budget friendly to start with and also the best at kind of getting used to that technique. So the first and probably the most surprising option actually is plain old Crayola marker pens. You can use the regular kind of chunky original Crayola markers or the super tip pens, which are great because they come in lots and lots of different colors. It doesn't matter, just as long as they have this triangular tip. The great thing about these pens is that obviously they're super cheap, they're very widely available, and as I mentioned, they do come, especially the super tips, they come in a lot of different colors, which can be really great if you are a beginner and you want to try out lots of different color combinations and things like that. The only downside I would say to the Crayola markers is that the technique that you use to create Crayoligraphy, as it's sometimes referred to, is a little bit different to the technique that you use with regular brush pens. They're good if you want to get the look of modern brush lettering, but you don't really want to have to learn the technique for brush pens, which can be a little bit trickier. But if you're looking to kind of progress and advance, perhaps these aren't the best option for you. The second option that I've got is these Artline Sticks pens. These are very similar to the Crayola markers in that they are just designed to be regular old children's felt tip pens. However, they do differ slightly to Crayola markers in that the tip is a lot similar to your traditional brush lettering tip, so the technique that you'll learn with these is a lot more similar to regular brush lettering. However, they are still quite sort of firm, they're a lot easier to get used to. The only downside I would say is that they're not as widely available, at least definitely not in the UK, and I think they're a little bit more expensive than Crayola markers. The third option, and the one that I actually started out with, is any set of dual tip brush pens that look a little bit like the Tombow ABT dual brush pens. These are very popular in the lettering community and for good reason. They're really great pens, to be honest, but I wouldn't recommend them for beginners because they can be quite expensive, and when you first start with this technique, you're not going to really understand how to use pens like these without fraying them quickly. So unless you want to spend a bunch of money on some really expensive pens and then fray them really quickly and not be able to use them again, you don't want to go for the Tombows. But there are lots of similar options out there on the market which are a lot cheaper, come in lots of different colours, and also offer a pretty similar lettering experience. So they're a good alternative if you want to graduate onto the Tombow pens and you want to learn the technique without spending a load of money on these pens. However, the downsides are that they are a bit more expensive to begin with than the Crayola markers or the Artline Sticks, and also just because they are kind of dupes of this pen, they're not going to be the same quality obviously, and they are going to fray a lot easier even if you are very careful with them and even if you already kind of know what you're doing. The final option is one of my absolute favourites. It's a pen that I still use nearly every single day, to be honest. I absolutely love it. It is the Tombow Fudenosuke pen. These come in either hard tip or soft tip options. The great thing about these pens is that they're really good for small lettering. I would recommend this pen 1,000 times over. It's really great. I use it every day for my bullet journal as well, and to be honest, it's one of those pens that I think should be in every modern calligrapher's arsenal really. But I think the reason why it's so good for beginners is that the tip is really elastic, so it makes it super easy to get a really smooth transition and a really clear transition between heavy strokes and light strokes. However, some of the cons to this pen are, firstly, they are not as widely available. You can get them on Amazon, I think, and some specialist calligraphy or lettering stores, but I haven't really ever seen them in just like a regular craft store in person. Another downside is that while they do sets of different colours of this pen, there are way less options. You're most likely going to be able to find these in black, and the coloured sets are more expensive anyway. However, I would definitely recommend getting at least one of these and practicing with it. It doesn't matter whether you get the hard tip or the soft tip. Usually you can get them in sets where you get one of each. These are a big recommendation from me. Maybe not the first pen you would try, but definitely one to have in your collection. So I just want to take a quick moment before we move on to the rest of the video to say that if you've been enjoying this video so far and if you found it useful, please consider giving it a like, leaving a comment, and most of all, please consider subscribing to my channel. I'm going to be uploading a lot more really useful, really fun videos in the coming months. So you've got your pens. The next thing that you're obviously going to need is something to write on them with. So there's two different kinds of paper that you're going to want to get. The first one is something to practice on, and the second one is something to actually create pieces on that you're going to want to hang up or give to a friend or even maybe sell one day. So for both of these types of paper, the main thing that you're going to want to look for is something that is as smooth as possible. This is super important for one big reason, and it's that if your paper isn't smooth, then your nib of your pen is likely to catch on it, which is not only going to ruin the look of your letters, but it's also, especially with the dual-tipped brush pens like the Tombos or the dupes of the Tombos, it's going to mean that your nibs fray a lot more easily. So really, even though you might have to spend a little bit more buying paper that's a little bit smoother, it will really pay off in the long run because you won't have to be replacing your pens or your nibs so quickly. So for practicing, really you can go fairly cheap. I've just bought, when I first started, a ream of this paper. So this is HP Colour Choice paper. It's just print paper, but the main thing about it really is that it's a little bit thicker so that the ink doesn't bleed through the paper, and it's also, as I said before, it's very smooth. I'm sure there are other options out there. Really, it doesn't matter. This is just the paper that I've always used, and I've always found that it's worked really well for me. So once you've been practicing for a while, you might find that you're at the stage where you want to create something that you want to give to a friend or hang on your wall. And for projects like that, you want to be going for something that's a little bit thicker and a bit more sturdy, really. So the best option that I found is Bristol board. This is just super smooth card, basically. It's really thick, which I found has been pretty good for most of my brush pens. It will definitely be fine for all of the ones that you get as a beginner. Another great option is mixed media paper. I actually just finished my mixed media pad yesterday, so I'll link my favorite one in the description. This is a little bit of a cheaper option. It's not like 100% smooth, but it's pretty good enough to get the job done. There are also lots of other options out there. As I said before, it's just that you want something really smooth, as smooth as possible, and something that's got a good bit of weight to it. So a question that I get quite a lot is, do I need paper like this to help you with the uniform lines? And my answer is no, you really don't need that. I never had that when I started calligraphy. I think if you were going for something very traditional that was very uniform, perhaps you would want to invest in a pad like that which had the guidelines in it. But if you're looking for something a little bit more free and a bit more expressive, which is more what I do anyway, you definitely don't need guided paper. You can definitely make do with regular plain paper. So now you've got all your tools, it's time to go over a couple of my top tips to help get you started. So number one, and this is super important, don't dive straight into letters. You're not going to understand when you first pick up a brush pen how to create a letter. You want to practice holding your pen and getting used to that. The way that you hold your pen when you're doing brush lettering is completely different to the way that you would hold it if you were regularly writing. The main thing that you need to remember is to point your nib towards the left of the page rather than towards the top. This is just going to mean that it's going to be a lot easier for you to get a very obvious difference between thick and thin strokes, and your writing is going to look so much more natural. The next thing that you need to do, as dull as this might sound, is practice drills until you get the hang of doing downstrokes, upstrokes and transitions between the two. There are lots of different ones that you can do. I would recommend watching my most recent video where I taught my dad how to do calligraphy. I'll link it here. We go over all the drills in that video so you can follow along and just keep practicing this as many times as it takes to get you really used to doing all these different strokes. So the final step is actually creating letters. Honestly, if you've done all the drills before, you'll find this a lot easier. A couple of tips that I would give you for this stage is to, number one, definitely don't rush things. Feel free to take breaks, take your pen off the page, assess where you're going. Don't feel like you need to write everything in one go. Once you've gotten used to writing letters and writing words, practice different styles. Feel free to take inspiration from others and try to develop your own unique alphabet that you can refer back to and that you can use in your calligraphy in the years to come. So once you've mastered your alphabet and you're getting used to writing words, writing names, creating calligraphy pieces, you might feel that it's time for you to graduate onto some more advanced tools and more advanced pens. And if that is the case, then definitely you should subscribe to my channel, because I'm going to be doing a lot more of these videos in the coming months, including a whole series with videos like this one in which I recommend my favourite products to do all different kinds of lettering. I'm basically going to be telling you everything you need to know about the wonderful world of calligraphy. So thanks so much for watching, guys. I really hope you found this video useful. Remember to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye!